Thank you for that. Hello, thank you for joining us this Friday evening for an update on the wildfire situation in the Northwest Territories. My name is Agata Gutkowska, and I currently work with the Territories Emergency Management Organization, and I will be your moderator for today. If you are not on our panel, I kindly ask that you keep your cameras off and your mics muted until it is your turn to speak. And media, please do not turn on your cameras at all. So like yesterday, I'm going to paste a list of commonly used acronyms in the chat because I've been told that that this comes in handy. So here you go. All right, so today we have a number of elected officials on call, and opening remarks will be a little bit longer than usual. So I may have to extend the media QA by 15 minutes if I find that reporters still have lots of questions. So this might run until 8:15. And today we will start with remarks from Caroline Wozniak, Minister of Finance and Industry, Tourism and Investment. Then Shane Thompson, Minister of Environment and Climate Change and Municipal and Community Affairs, will make remarks. I will then ask DETA Chief Edward Sangris for the Yellowknife's Dene First Nation to make remarks. Then Yellowknife Mayor Rebecca Alty will speak. Lastly, Jessica Davy-Quantick, Wildfire Information Officer for the Department of Environment and Climate Change, will provide a fire update. After this, we will move straight to the media QA period. And as always, I'm prioritizing N.W.T outlets during that media QA. So you guys will get a chance to ask one question and one follow-up. And once we've gone through that list, I will open up questions to Southern media. Premier Cochrane today will make closing remarks. So I am going to paste the names and titles of our panelists into the chat here, but I will also say them out loud here so you guys have pronunciation. All right, so I'm throwing that into the chat right now. All right, so on our panel today, we have Premier Caroline Cochrane, Minister Shane Thompson, Minister Caroline Wozniak, DETA Chief Edward Sangris, Mayor Rebecca Alty, Sheila Bassi-Kellett, City Manager for Yellowknife, Jennifer Young, Emergency Management Organization Officer for the Department of Municipal and Community Affairs. We have Jessica Davy-Quantick, Information Officer for the Department of Environment and Climate Change. John McDonald, Deputy Minister of Education, Culture and Employment. Claudia Kraft, Territorial Medical Director. Kimberly Riles, CEO of Northwest Territories Health and Social Services Authority. Jeffrey Edison, Acting Assistant Deputy Minister for Regional Operations, Department of Infrastructure. Corporal Matt Halstead, RCMP. Corey Strang, CEO and President of NTPC. And Imran Khan, CFO of Northwest Tel. So again, you'll find the names and titles pasted into the chat there. And because of the situation in the South Slave right now, unfortunately, Hay River Mayor Candace Jameson and Fort Smith Deputy Mayor Jay McDonald are unable to join us today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Minister Wozniak for opening remarks.
Thanks very much, Agata, and good evening, everybody. This week, the several departments, in fact, have been working hard to produce a number of measures that will help residents continue to access their basic needs during the evacuation period, and also so that they are ready when it comes time to travel home. There are some new announcements as well as some changes that we've made to programs to help them make them more responsive to the situation we find ourselves in. All of the changes and new programs are focused on ensuring that everyone's basic needs continue to be met during the time of the evacuation orders, our commitment to ensure everyone is able to return home safely, and for businesses to make sure that they too are able to be opened safely when the time comes. I want to thank my colleagues on the other side of the House. So those of you familiar with the Northwest Territories system of government know that we run in a consensus model. We don't have an opposition per se. On the regular MLAs who sit on the other side, though, they do hold us to account. In this instance, I was very happy to meet with my colleagues yesterday, and I can say we had a very good discussion, and I want to just again extend my gratitude for their feedback. It was very constructive, and it is helping to make today's announcements better. And that isn't to say that we're necessarily answering all of the challenges that were put to us, whether by MLAs or by the many people from across the Northwest Territories who continue to reach out to us as MLAs and as ministers. We are hearing from residents and from businesses. We are trying, though, to recognize that some of the funding here will provide some relief, even while not necessarily fixing each and every individual circumstance or need that's being experienced. An important piece that is also happening at the same time is in the nonprofit sector. And so I do want to say again, a gratitude out to those individuals and organizations working with community and working with community members. And in that regard, the Northwest Territories government has again made a second donation this wildfire season to the United Way in the amount of $250,000. There's two new programs I wanted to describe this evening. I'm happy to take questions on these or on any of the other changes that we've made to some of the existing programs. The two new ones I have are an evacuation travel support program. Here, the Department of Finance is proposing to administer the evacuation travel support program for 2023 wildfire evacuation orders for any individuals who had to evacuate by vehicle. This is meant to alleviate some of the associated hardship and burden of having to travel often very long distances by vehicle when under order of evacuation. The proposed supports are categorized in as follows: a one-time payment of $750 for each vehicle evacuated to a southern jurisdiction, or a one-time payment of $400 for each vehicle evacuated within the Northwest Territories. Persons are eligible based on their travel by vehicle, and as such, it's one individual per vehicle who would be applying on behalf of their travel companions. Evacuees who require their return to be by air will still have the charter evacuation flights available to them, and details both about the travel support program, which we are hoping to have live by early next week, as well as details of how to register for return flights also should be coming out as soon as possible and hopefully early next week. The second program I want to speak to very briefly before I conclude is on the business side. Many Northwest Territories businesses have been very seriously impacted by the wildfire shutdowns and evacuations that have been affecting the Northwest Territories all summer. And in fact, very often it's the small and medium-sized businesses who are so important to the fabric of our communities who are often impacted disproportionately. ITI is responding now with a ministerial directive for the seed policy, allowing contributions up to $5,000 to offset operational costs incurred by businesses who were impacted by wildfires as of May of 2023 till now. Many businesses will be familiar with the operational type of support that we're contemplating here. It is very similar to what was offered during COVID to assist with fixed costs. Those are my opening remarks for this evening. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Thanks, Agatha.
Thanks very much, Minister. Okay, Minister Thompson, can you make remarks, please?
Thank you, Agatha, and thank you, Minister Wozniak. Good evening, everyone. We've been fighting wildfire on many fronts lately, and tonight our attention turns to Hay River, where extreme wildfire behavior overwhelmed efforts at the northern section of the fire this afternoon. Extreme southwest winds have pushed the fire closer to town along the highway, forcing crews and aircraft to pull back and regroup at a safe distance. In coordination with the town of Hay River and the Canadian Armed Forces, every effort is being made to move non-essential personnel out of the area for their safety. Crews have been very busy establishing fire breaks and protecting structures in recent weeks, and it's possible these efforts will be tested. This is a very serious situation that we will be monitoring closely. My thoughts and prayers are with all our friends and families in Hay River tonight as this fire threatens your community. Unfortunately, we're continually reminded that wildfires should not be underestimated and the situation can change quickly. This is why I continue to urge all residents to stay away from communities that are under evacuation orders. These orders are never easily issued lightly, so please respect them while they are in place. The Department of Infrastructure has established road barriers outside of all evacuated communities, discourage non-essential residents from re-entering, and will maintain this presence until the orders are lifted. Please respect evacuation orders so that we can all get home as soon as possible. In closing, I want to extend my continued appreciation for everyone involved in protecting our communities and caring for the people who are away from their homes right now. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for your sacrifice and your compassion. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Now I invite DETA Chief Edward Sangris to make remarks.
Good evening. Okay, I'm ready.
Yep, go ahead.
Oh, okay, I haven't. Good evening, everybody. As you know, it's been a dark days for our people, Yellowknife. It cannot say enough for all the work that everybody's doing in the places where they're not familiar with. As we continue to yearn for our homeland while we are scattered in distant places, I hear the concerns of our people. And I want them to know, the leaders, we are listening. We are taking the steps necessary to ensure that critical financial resources are made available to every evacuated Yellowknife or tribe. We are working with many officials to help our members reunite with their families as they are scattered all over, no matter where they find themselves. Our Waikiki First Nation frontline workers are ensuring that our homes, schools, and community facilities are protected in the ongoing threat of intense wildfire. The N.W.T have not been idle during the state of emergency. We have established a fire break from shore to shore around DETA. We have developed sprinkler system around the perimeter of DETA and Dillon and many other cabins along the Ingham Trail. Our views of the workers and volunteers continue to fire smart both communities, working every day to cut, clear brush, and many other activities. Meanwhile, our administrative staff is working directly with the City of Yellowknife, N.W.T, and many other agencies to develop plans, coordinate activities, and take our seat at the table as sovereign First Nations government. I again want to express my gratitude to all our essential workers who have stayed behind to do this important work. I think it's not easy to be separated from the family. And it's not easy to know that their job are doing is immensely important to our people. You got to stay safe and know our prayers are with you. We have not forgotten about the needs of evacuated people. Our staff down south here have been caring for our elders and their family to ensure their dignity and well-being during these hard times. These workers are also connecting YKD members to make sure that to know where all our people are. I would ask that the N.W.T please visit our website and Facebook to register your location and needs of the First Nations. We recognize the crises that have taken a toll on our livelihood and the savings of our people. I hope our members will take comfort in knowing that we are working with the friendship centers to distribute emergency financial relief. I know it's hard to ask our people to stay patient when all we want to do is come home. I'm praying for our safe return as well. And we must let our workers do their job, ensure we can all come home when it is safe. I am asking all the N.W.T First Nation to continue support each other no matter where they find themselves. And I must also remind them to remember the Dene laws. Share what you have, help each other, love one another as much as possible, and be respectful of the elders, everything around you. And as our ancestors have braved storms, fires, and floods in the past, nothing too small or ensured that the N.W.T we have done since time immemorial. And we must ask the government to find a way for the people to do some of the essential things that have kept them going, like when they need to pay for their housing, the rent for their houses. I must ask the government what is being done on that part when our people are not at home and some of them have rental that have to be paid. Once again, I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to listen. Masicho.
Thank you very much, Chief Sangris. All right, now Yellowknife Mayor Rebecca Alty will make remarks.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Tonight, I want to talk about the work that we're doing around welcoming you home when the fire is no longer a threat. First and foremost, before welcoming everyone home, we need to make sure that the fire is no longer a threat to Yellowknife. We're still in the middle of actively fighting fires, so very close to the edges of our community, which means that we do not have a firm timeline to get you back home yet. However, over the last week, we've continued to work hard on the fire breaks, and we've begun the planning needed to welcome you home. We are already establishing plans so that when we get word from wildfire experts that the risk has passed enough for a return and the N.W.T lifts the evacuation order, we'll be ready. But I have to stress, it won't happen instantly. And when we come back, we won't all come back at once. A phased approach will be needed that balances the time required for services to be reestablished with the urgency to get you back home and back to your life. The reality is, you can't come back to a home and community without services. We're working in partnership with the territorial government to make sure that when you come back, your community will be ready for you. This means things like making sure you have safe drinking water and that we're able to do sewage pump outs, that the airport is open for commercial flights, that stores have food, that there are enough healthcare professionals at the hospital to help you when you need them, and much more. Right now, we have skeleton crews providing these services for the 1,000 essential workers. It will take a bit of time to make sure we're ready to support a city of 20,000 again. We will share as much as we can when we can as plans come together. But tonight, we're not there yet. Our efforts have to remain on the health and safety of our community, our first responders, and on beating this wildfire first. We know this uncertainty around concrete timelines can create stress and anxiety. Please do reach out for emotional support if you need it. There are supports available at the evacuation centers and on the territorial government's website, www.gov.nt.ca. I also want to take this opportunity to address MLA Knuckleby's comment in NSL today about, "I don't feel a huge sense of urgency," she said. "I've seen people playing Frisbee. It doesn't strike me that the town is about to burn down by any means." For me, that comment is incredibly disrespectful to all the crews that have been busting their ass 12 to 18 hours a day to protect our community. For the past month, firefighters have been out there risking their lives to fight the fire. And for the past 2 weeks, parents have missed their kids' birthdays so they can create the best fire breaks in Canada. Military personnel have been providing on-the-ground support to the firefighting and evacuation of our communities. And all the staff at the city and elsewhere have been working exhaustively to plan the defense and the future reopening of our community. I do hope there will be an apology to all of these people. There is a sense of urgency and a deep sense of love and passion for our community. To all the people here in Yellowknife who are continuing to work hard to protect our community, please know that's an isolated comment. Here at the City of Yellowknife, we deeply appreciate your work and will be forever indebted to you for your selfless service. Thank you. And to be clear, the city is not looking for volunteers. We appreciate that everybody wants to come home, but we have all of the professionals and experts that we need right now, and we're not looking for anybody further. There's no need to send us a request to help out. And residents, again, we can't wait to welcome all of our friends, family, colleagues, neighbors, and all Yellowknifers home, but we only want to do that when it's safe. Until then, please stay safe wherever you've settled. Good night, everyone. Take care. And to the community of Hay River, you're in our thoughts tonight, and we're hoping for the best. Thank you.
Thanks very much for those remarks, Mayor Alty. Now, Jessica Davy-Quannick will provide a fire update. Jessica?
Hi. Okay, starting with the situation in Hay River tonight, extremely high temperatures and strong southwest winds have created a blow-up event that has overwhelmed firefighters at the north end of the fire. There's currently a kilometers-wide flame front moving parallel to the highway towards Hay River. At last report, the fire was 7 kilometers from the fire guard outside the city and 10 kilometers south of the highway on the west side of the Hay River. It is in all likelihood much closer now. We need to regroup and reassess when it's safe. Things will be clearer at that point. Wildfire crews and aircraft have been pulled back and repositioned to a safe area. At this point, I want to state that no firefighters have left at this time. Non-essential personnel, however, are being evacuated for their own safety. We continue to work with the town of Hay River and the Canadian Armed Forces on this. Structural firefighters from the town are activating structure protection and are ready to deal with any encroachments the fire may have on the town. The team has done everything possible to prepare for an event like this and will continue to do everything we can to protect Hay River. There is a threat, but with wildfire, nothing is certain. It is possible fire flanks away from town, but we're not taking any chances. We're preparing for the worst and hoping for the best. This is why, regardless of what community you're from, you need to follow all the directions from emergency management personnel for your own safety and the safety of essential workers who are actively fighting these fires. Anything else is irresponsible. This fire has held for the same amount of time as the ones outside of Yellowknife, and in a matter of hours, the situation has changed drastically. Fort Smith is under similar pressure, with high winds and temperatures increasing fire activity. Direct attacks continue in particular spots near Tabacha, Fort Smith, and Fort Fitzgerald, with operations continuing through the night to protect those communities. John Marie River has seen their evacuation order lifted and people are returning. However, today, that fire also required direct attacks from air tankers and crews, as weather was not on our side today. Temperatures are high. That community remains on alert in case another evacuation is needed for everyone's safety. Moving over to the North Slave right now, a band of weather is moving across the region, resulting in increasingly strong winds and record high temperatures. It is unseasonably warm for this time of year. Very little precipitation is expected, and significant fire activity happened today and is expected to continue going into the weekend. Although the fires remain largely in place, the risk has not diminished. These fires are big and they're hot, and we're doing everything we can to protect every community and the safety of all of us, including our firefighters. That is why it is so important that you do not return to evacuated communities. Now is not the time to take chances or find loopholes. We know it's hard to be away. We're away too. We understand it's a struggle, but from the people on the ground fighting these fires and working night and day to protect our homes, follow the evacuation orders. Every non-essential person on the ground takes up resources and time from our crews that could be better spent protecting our communities. As we've seen tonight, and our hearts go out to Hay River, situations in a fire situation can change on a dime. It can happen very quickly. We operate out of an abundance of caution to keep everybody safe. Thank you.
Thanks for the update, Jessica. So we are going to move to the question period now, starting with Northern Media. So first up, we have Ethan at My True North Now. Hi, Ethan, do you have a question? Okay, I'll come back to you, Ethan. Eric at NNSL.
Good afternoon. So I'm just wondering, and Rebecca kind of alluded to this to a certain extent, but I'm wondering just if we could get an actual definition of what an essential worker is and what, if there's any cases of MACA actually bringing people back in from out of the, who have been evacuated to assist, if there's been any actual cases of that.
Sure. Minister Wozniak, can you answer the question around what defines an essential worker?
Thanks, Agatha. I think you may want to send this over ultimately to the EMO in this particular case, but as in this point, we do generally turn it over. We, being the N.W.T, look to the responsibility of municipalities to define the needs that they would have in the case of any emergency. So each municipality leads their response, determines who is essential, works with contractors who then also would determine what is essential for them to perform the works that they are undertaking on behalf of the municipality. But
Okay,
yeah,
thanks
if
for
I missed anything, an email can fill it in. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that. Jennifer, can you jump in here?
Sure. Minister Wozniak was correct in how it's determined through community governments, and I'd further add it's to broaden the definition. It's in terms of those directly supporting the wildfire activities, and then the staff that are supporting those essential workers who are fighting the wildfire activities.
Thanks, Jennifer. Do you have a follow-up, Eric?
I do. Just give me half a second here. Long down here. So with this new funding option for people who've been evacuated, is this pending the Legislative Assembly meeting on Monday that has to make this through, or is this officially something that is accessible regardless of what happens on Monday?
Minister Wozniak?
Thanks. No, this isn't tied to the Assembly. So the Legislative Assembly on Monday is sitting for two things. Firstly, is around an appropriation for the fire suppression budget. So our firefighting budget typically is under 20 million, and we are more than 3 times that, probably likely to be something like 4 or 5 times that at this point. So that's a major budgetary change that does have to go through the Assembly. This is a change that can, at this point, we expect be funded from within existing appropriations, and as such, it can be a policy that goes out from the Assembly. And now, of course, we're a consensus government, so I did have an opportunity yesterday to go and meet with MLA colleagues and had some feedback from them. Almost all MLAs were there, and almost all that were there participated and had a lot of questions and feedback. So that, because they're of course getting the frontline view of what people are needing. So we wanted to try to be as responsive as possible. Now with that process, we are now launching it. It should be ready to have intake hopefully by Monday. Thanks.
Thanks, Minister. All right, now moving along to CBC North, we have Luke and Manur on the line.
Hi, I guess I'm just going to follow up on Chief Sangris's question. I'm wondering, is the territory going to pass any legislation to help renters who aren't staying in their places during an evacuation order? Thank you.
Sure. Who wants to take this one? I have the Premier on Minister Wozniak, go ahead.
Thanks, Agatha. Sorry, and I certainly obviously defer to the Premier, but we do actually have, what we were trying to do this week is really make sure that we had a full suite of different programs and services available to people. So, we've done a real inventory of what different programs are out there for us. We want to ensure people's basic needs are being met in terms of evacuation needs, but also do our best to try to ensure that whatever levers and tools and programs we have in existing programs and services, that we can try to fine tune them. And so in this regard, the Housing N.W.T is prorating their rates, their rents for folks. So people aren't being charged rent when they're not living in the units, and they're not going to be charged their September rents unless or until they're back in those units. Thanks.
Thanks, Minister. Do you have a follow-up, Luke?
Yeah, so I understand that's just for public housing, but is there anything that's going to be done for people who are renting private units?
Minister Wozniak? Yeah, thanks. I mean, obviously, enforcing that kind of legislation on the private sector would be a little more complicated. Now, look, I can't speak to necessarily what is happening in the private sector, but I did notice a headline elsewhere that actually I think at least one of the major holders of rental units in the Northwest Territories has actually followed suit. So it looks like that might be a happy surprise. It didn't require legislation. Thanks.
Thanks, Minister. All right, we have Cabin Radio, Simona and Ollie on the line.
Yeah, thanks, Agatha. I'll go if that's all right. I just want to ask regarding these $750 payments. A family of 5 leaving in a minivan gets less than a couple who each drove their own truck to safety. Why is that?
Yep. Minister Wozniak?
Yeah, look, like I said, I have no doubt that I think a lot of people will be saying, look, this doesn't meet my needs, this doesn't suit my needs. What we were trying to do is firstly be quick about what we were designing. Secondly, try to do something that could respond to a real range of themes that we're hearing right now around making sure that people's essential needs are met. So there's some things we've done, just working with our partners in Alberta to make sure that accommodations are met, for instance, and in some cases there have gas vouchers giving out. And then the next big thing is there's a real concern that people won't have the gas to get home. The more we if we're going to try and fine tune a program to be very individualized, saying, bring us your receipts, that is very complicated. It's very difficult. It would take more time. And another thing is it is unlikely then that we'd be able to seek any sorts of supports from the federal government under their disaster assistance policy. If we can make it a policy such that we're hoping we can fall within that, that certainly helps what's going to be pretty strained fiscal capacity on the part of the N.W.T. Thanks.
Thanks, Minister. Ollie, do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, regarding the $750 figure itself, what is the methodology for that? Is that just simply the estimated cost of gas to get home? Where is the figure coming from?
Go ahead, Minister.
Yeah, thanks. Again, we actually did have some conversations within finance about how to come up with that. And the reality is depending, your make, model, vehicle, size of fuel tank, type of the way you drive and where you might fuel up in Alberta, there's an endless plethora of options there. At this point, we were trying to find a number that was a general representative of, anecdotally what people would say is a typical amount to fuel up, considering a 2-direction that they have to travel, as well as also in this case, frankly, lining up with the amount that is in the income disruption support program, partly just for some simplicity and some, in terms of being able to go out and communicate to folks. And then also, being aware of what the total costs of some of these programs are and what that will do. So that's where we got that. Thanks.
Thanks, Minister. Okay, moving along now to Brett at Edge North. Hi, Brett. Are you there? Oh, okay, perfect. We can skip Brett here. All right, I'm going to go back to Ethan at my True North now. Ethan, are you on the line? No? Okay. Alrighty, so I'm going to open it up to Southern Media now. So if you guys have a question, just raise your hand. And I see here, Carrie, your hand is up. Carrie Tate.
Hi, thanks for taking my question. I understand from lawyers that N.W.T has indicated that court could be back in Yellowknife on September 11th. I'm wondering if this is sort of a rough internal date that the government is using as they try to figure out timelines on returns.
Okay, we don't have anyone from the Department of Justice on the line. And I don't think there's anybody on our panel that can speak to this right now. If there is, please raise your hand. Carrie, it looks like I'm going to have to connect you with the Department of Justice to get that question answered. And I can do that after this conference.
Okay, maybe can I frame it in a general way?
Sure.
Does the government have an internal date that you're working with as you try to prepare timelines? Recognizing, of course, that these things are unknown.
Okay. Yep, I will connect with you after the call. Do you have another question for someone on our panel?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just wondering if then someone else on the panel, if there's a working date that you guys are using, even though recognizing you don't know when the fires will, when things will be safe, given that some departments at least appear to be using September 11th as a working date if the government has something on paper. Thank
Sure.
you.
Minister Thompson?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So unfortunately, we don't have a date. We're working with the fires. We have the fire situation in Yellowknife, Hay River, and Fort Smith is it's still going on. So we haven't put anything on paper. We're starting to work and on what we think is a return date, but again, it all depends on, and you heard Minister or the Mayor Alty talk about it, you know, once it's safe to start bringing essential people in, then we start going through that process. So Mayor Alty explained it quite nicely. You know, you got to get the airport people in, you got to make sure the medical health staff people are in, the stores are in, the gas stations are in. So there's a whole plethora of questions and concerns that we need to work on. So right now, we don't have a working document says this is the date. I think Justice is just going through a process, but I cannot speak for that department. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
Thanks, Minister. Okay, we're going to move on now to Joel Bouchard. Your hand is up.
Hi, yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. I might have missed it, but can you tell me what's the distance of the fire from Yellowknife right now?
Sure. Jessica Davy-Quannick, can you answer this one?
Sure. It's about 15 kilometers away from Yellowknife. It's been staying in the same place for the last couple of weeks. That's good news. But again, we're still doing infrared mapping, so it could be much closer and the danger has not diminished. But it is, as what we can see at last mapping, approximately 15 kilometers from Yellowknife.
Thanks, Jessica. All right, Nushin. Nushin, your hand is up. Okay, I'll come back to you. Bennett. Dean Bennett. Okay, Joel, back to you.
Yeah, sorry. I also just want to make sure what you said about the two options, they are being set up at this point, or it's confirmed that you have like two changes to the program, the one like money for bivehicle and the business option. It's confirmed or it's on talks?
Minister Wasnick.
Yeah, no, thanks very much. These are both confirmed. There's the travel support already now that we're announcing now. There is going to be a seed programming enhancement or directive that will target specifically wildfire affected businesses. It's only that because we've obviously spent some time this week doing the bit of the drafting work and then meeting with as colleagues to figure this out. The actual programs themselves are contemplated to be applications online. Seed already exists online. The new program, we still have to get the actual technical infrastructure online. So people can't go and Google it just yet, but we're hoping to have it up and ready to roll for Monday or thereabouts. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Minister. All right, moving along to Nushin. Okay.
Aggie, there's a question in the chat.
Oh, is there? Sorry, guys. Okay. He can't seem to get his microphone to work. Okay, I'm wondering if you can tell us how many people were in Hay River today before they were told to evacuate the community. So I'm going to throw this one to Jennifer.
Yeah, thanks for the question. We know there was about 100-ish residents, we believe, and then other essential workers on top of that, estimated to be in the 100 to 150 range, maybe up to 200. I can also let you know that one plane has already left Hay River with 56 people on it. There's 2 more to go in tonight. And my understanding is that some residents have chosen to leave by other means as well.
Okay, thank you. And Dean Bennett, your hand is up.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, a couple questions. I wonder if someone can update us on, we're hearing a lot of stories about homes in Yellowknife. People are breaking in, stealing things. Can someone update us on that? And what's the situation with at the roadblocks? Are we still seeing a lot of people trying to get back to Yellowknife?
Sure. So your first question I'm going to send to Corporal Matt Halstead with the RCMP.
Yeah, thank you. So we are not seeing lots of homes broken into. We've seen online that there's indication of widespread looting or lots of break-in enters, and we found no evidence of that. We've reported on a couple of incidents that, one was a family dispute where people were arrested for being unlawfully in the residence, and another one where a door was kicked in and some damage was caused. But that's the extent of what we're seeing. We have not had confirmed reports of break-in enters or thefts at this point.
Thanks, Matt. And the second piece here about roadblocks, I am going to throw to Jeffrey at the Department of Infrastructure.
Sure, thank you. Thanks for the question. We started tracking yesterday the number of people that were turning away from the roadblocks. I don't have that number for you. Unfortunately, I don't have that number right now. But we do have at the Yellowknife area, 272 roadblock, we do have the Starlink system set up so that we can keep a list updated as the requests come in for the essential services, and whether it be crew changes for firemen or whatever the case. We do have a Starlink set up, and we're working to keep that list updated as well as we can. There are some little glitches in that, but we're working through, and we're trying as well. I don't have the numbers for what's turning away, but I don't believe it's as high at the roadblock. There's lots of questions coming in for people wanting to return, but I believe that there are more questions coming in online and through telephone calls than there are people actually showing up and trying to get through. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Do we have any more questions? And Northern Media, feel free to jump in here as well. Okay, Luke Carroll, CBC, go ahead.
How do people access this financial support the government's providing?
Sure, Minister Wozniak.
There we go. Sorry. Thanks for the question. Look, I mean, there's a few things here right now. You know, as I said, this is not just a one aspect thing. There's a number of things we're doing. So let me just quickly say, with the income disruption program that was already in existence, that form is available online, can be filled in, and we've made some modifications there to make that more accessible. So for instance, for self-employed persons, they are now actively eligible. We've been using some waivers to get folks in, but anyone who's seen any income disruption, I'd encourage them to take a look at that form and put their application in, because we've really tried to open that up this week as well. As for the new travel subsidy program, it will also be available online, but it just takes some time to actually physically build online infrastructure. And so folks are going to be working through the weekend on that, and we're expecting it to be live. I'm saying Monday, but it'll certainly be live early next week. And from the looks of things, that should be ample time to get people their funds in time for any return opportunity, if that were to happen or as early as, say, the end of next week or early the week following. And Seed too is also available online. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Minister. Eric, your hand's up.
Yeah, this one is for Irwin Can at Northwest Tel. I'm just wondering what's going on with the Mackenzie Valley Fiber Link line. We've heard up here that it could be up to 4 weeks before we get it restored. I'm just wondering what you know on the subject.
Sure. Imran, go ahead.
Thank you for the question. We have been trying several times to access the area, but currently it's unsafe. It's been deemed unsafe. We've been given information that with some heavy rain in the area that the situation can improve, but otherwise right now the area is too unsafe to begin repairs. The crews are on standby, and we're working very closely with Northwest N.W.T Fire to ensure that the moment it's safe to be out there, that we can just go out there, dispatch, and repair the fiber. Thank you.
Thanks very much. All right, Ollie Williams.
Thanks, Agatha. Just a couple of quick questions. The first one, what is the overall cost expected to be of the new $750/$400 support for evacuees by vehicle announced today? What are we setting aside to pay for that? Minister
Wozniak?
Yeah, thanks very much. We are expecting that the travel subsidy program will likely run around $6 million. At least that's what we're putting aside for it at the moment. And sorry, I think he asked me about seed. So seed funding we do already have budgeted. It's a matter of reprofiling and just ensuring that it's coming from the seed policy budget that we have right now, just that it's being earmarked for this particular use. Thanks.
Thanks. Ollie, do you have another question?
One more time quickly, if I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Can I just ask about Yukon? There are some evacuees in Yukon. I don't know if any of them drove there. Presumably they get the $750 if they did. What kind of arrangement does the N.W.T have with Yukon right now to provide the kinds of support seen in Alberta?
Sure. Jennifer Young, can you speak to this?
The supports that are provided are offered through the particular evacuation center set up by Yukon in Whitehorse. And I don't have the details in terms of the exact type of supports, but they are offered through the specific evacuation center.
Thanks, Jennifer. Okay, Luke Carroll, CBC, go ahead.
We've heard some stories on some homeless individuals and other evacuees who've been kicked out of hotels. I'm just wondering what the government is doing for people who are in that situation.
Sure, Premier.
Thank you. I was just actually today visiting the evacuation centers in Calgary and in Red Deer. I did meet with the Association of Hotels, probably saying that wrong, in Alberta. And I also met with the Premier Smith and the Deputy Premier of Alberta. There have been people, there will be people that do get kicked out, but we are reinforcing to people, go back to the evacuation center. We will try to either have people to work with you, supports that are there to support you through, or we'll be looking at other evacuation accommodations for people. So that was the discussion that we had today, and hopefully everyone will be provided accommodations. But again, a plea out to people, residents in the Northwest Territories, we're community minded, we're kind, we're generous. Please be respectful of our hosts in Alberta. So thank you.
Thanks, Premier. All right, Luke, do you have another one?
Not right now. I think I'm good.
Okay, Eric, go ahead.
Hello. So this one is for Jeffrey Edison. No, sorry, not Jeffrey Edison. My bad. John McDonald.
Okay, education.
What? So if students are going to be delayed for up till at least September 5th and possibly beyond, how is ECE figuring out how these students are going to catch up to make sure that they are able to meet the requirements of the curriculum?
Go ahead, John.
Thanks, Eric. Currently, ECE is working with the education bodies to look at what types of supports will be necessary. As was the case with COVID, we learned quite quickly after students returned that there were significant impacts due to the absent time. So we'll be looking at things like counseling services, as well as the amount of instructional time and whether there'll be need to adjust school calendars, which is one potential. But I think it will be necessary for us to continue to measure how much instructional time is lost before we make any definitive decisions about what types of new supports are required. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Eric, do you have another one?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
This one's for Corey Strang with NTPC. I'm just wondering, I know that NTPC had mentioned that they had to bill people for up to the middle of the month here before the evacuation, but I'm wondering when or if customers will be stopped being billed for power they're not using in these communities that they're currently evacuated from.
Go ahead, Corey.
Thanks for the question. NTPC is providing power in all the communities that are evacuated to run their fridges or other matters that they have. So their consumption will be considerably less than they normally have, but that would just be the items that we're doing is their power consumption will be lower, so their bills will be lower as well. We are discontinuing late payment charges and penalty charges for those people that might not be able to do that, and people can access their bills online, and we are submitting paper bills as well. We got a process in there as well, even though our head office is in Hay River, which, as I'm hearing right now, is under direct attack. So my thoughts go out to everyone that's there fighting that fire there as well. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Corey. I'm actually going to move it to the chat right now. We had a question here for Jessica that was answered in the chat, but I just want to bring it to video so that our audience, I'm sure a lot of people are watching, can also hear it. So Jessica Davy-Quanick, how does the severity of the fire that caused this evacuation in Hay River compare to previous fires that also led to evacuations in the area? Jessica?
Sure. As I said in the chat, it's really hard to compare fires. It's not like an apples to apples kind of comparison. Each fire is unique and the danger can shift within a single fire, as we've seen. We act with an abundance of caution and in the interest of human safety at all times. So every fire that's caused an evacuation, that needed to happen. But we can't really say that this fire is worse than the other one. Every fire has its own dangers and its own pluses and minuses and challenges associated with them. So that's kind of where we're at with that one. I feel for Hay River personally. They've had a really hard go of it the last couple of years, and I know our teams are doing as much as they possibly can to protect that community.
Thanks, Jessica. Luke?
My colleague just pointed out that the Premier is meeting with the Prime Minister tomorrow. I'm just wondering what she plans to discuss with him there.
Premier?
Thank you. I will be meeting with the Prime Minister tomorrow afternoon. I will be discussing the situation that we're facing in the Northwest Territories, the huge financial cost that this is going to be impacting to the Northwest Territories, and soliciting more support for the territories as we go forward. Of course, I will be also, I've said it loudly and clearly throughout all news medias that we've been asking for proper infrastructure, proper road system, proper cell phone systems for decades. This wildfire has showed the risk, then we don't get that. And I will also be emphasizing that the time for talk is done. We need action now. We cannot face another year like this, and I will not accept it. So thank you.
Thank you, Premier. All right, Joelle Bouchard, go ahead.
Sorry, I just keep asking questions. Yeah, I just want to know if you have like an estimate of how many people are under evacuation order right now, if you have like a percentage or something.
You mean across the territory?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, Jennifer?
Yeah, the amount is about 26 to 29,000.
All right, thanks, Jennifer. Okay, last question here from Eric at NNSL. Go ahead, Eric.
Hi, I'm just wondering, there's been this whole effort for evacuees to register at centers, and I'm assuming there was an effort to track evacuees as they moved out of the city with the flights and such. I'm wondering how confident the N.W.T is that they have a bead on everybody who was evacuated. Like if they know where it is, or roughly speaking, what city they're in at least.
Sure, Jennifer?
Each of the evacuation centers that have been established have their own registration, so we do know the counts for each of those evacuation centers. In terms of those that have left the north, we do have our own evacuee registration portal, but the extent to which everybody has signed into that, I'm not aware of.
Thanks, Jennifer. Alrighty, so thank you to our panel and to media for your questions. Before we say goodbye today, I'd like to invite the Premier to make some closing remarks. Premier?
Thank you, Aggie. I just want to thank everyone again for tonight, for joining in. It's been a really tough summer for a lot of us, those who have been evacuated, those communities who have multiple evacuations, and those who have seen fires throughout their communities right from the southern border right to the Beaufort Delta. So again, I said earlier, all of us are very aware of what's going on in Hay River. Our hearts go out to those people. Want you to know that we are with you. We stand by you. We'll do what we can. This devastation of this wildfires, almost 70% of our population being evacuated is going to take a toll on your mental health. Please be kind to each other and reach out for support as you need. It's not, if you need support, we're there to help you with that. I guess the other thing is we've been hearing from a lot of people about the challenges they're facing, their desire to go home. We all want to go home. I hear you. I know it's frustrating, and I know when people want deadlines, but we're doing the best we can to make sure that people get home as soon as possible once the risk is safe. I also know that lots of rumors on Facebook. Please avoid those rumors. Please look for the government website page for up-to-date news. And I guess the last thing I really want to say is, contrary to what was presented in the news today, please do not try to jump through hoops to get back into the Northwest Territories. You put yourself and our first responders at risk. So again, thank you everyone for your patience. We are here for you, and we're doing the best to make sure that all residents can return as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Premier. Just a note for media and residents watching, we are not planning to have a press conference over the weekend. And of course, if this changes, I will be sending out a media advisory to our media. Starting next week, we will aim to run 2 press conferences a week to provide updates on the wildfire situation. And these will likely be on Mondays and Thursdays. But again, things change quickly. So media, just keep looking out for those media advisories in your inboxes. And we will continue, of course, putting out public service announcements and updating our socials, as well as the public safety page. So media, if you have any further questions after today, please reach out to the appropriate department. And if it's for ministers or premier, please reach out to the press secretary at presssecretary@gov.nt.ca. Thanks very much and take care.